All right, Steeler fans, it is the second half. It is time for the winners and losers. We have, what a list here, 10 winners and 6 losers after the Steelers win over the Commanders in Week 10. Let's get this started. Winners, start off with Patrick Queen. What is his stat line? 7 tackles, 6 solo, 2 tackles for loss, and 1 pass defense. I felt this was kind of Patrick Queen's coming out party. He has steadily been getting better every single week. We said it before. I'll say it again. This is a type of system that when he's wearing the green dot, something he did not do in Baltimore, that was Roquan Smith. He has to get used to and acclimated to these type of changes, to being the one in charge, to making the calls, and he is slowly getting comfortable. What you're seeing now is what we all expected early in the season, but maybe those expectations were a little too lofty. Patrick Queen is showing the athleticism, the speed, the tenacity. He is doing a phenomenal job. He definitely deserves to be on the winners list. With his performance. Great job. Let's hope it keeps trending in this direction. Next, old Captain Cam Hayward. His stat line, 2 tackles, 2 solo, 2 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 1 pass defense, and 2 quarterback hits. A key moment in this game that not a lot of people were talking about. It's at the very end of the third quarter. Jaden Daniels drops back to pass. They are in field goal range. And Cam Hayward bull rushes the guard, pushes him back, and actually gets Jaden Daniels to the ground. That sack forces them out of field goal range. They have to punt, and the Commanders never got back into field goal range for the rest of the football game. Cam Hayward, that's just one example. He has been playing some great football. This was that game. This is the game that when TJ Watt's not on the winners list, he's not on the winners list, and that's neither here nor there. You need someone else to step up. In prior weeks, it has been someone like Nick Herbig. It's been someone like Cam. In this case, it's Cam Hayward. You want your superstars to step up in big moments. Cam Hayward did just that. Kudos to him. He's on the winners list. Let's go to the next one. George Pickens. His stat line, 5 catches, 91 yards. He had an 18.2 yard average. He did have a touchdown. Phenomenal catch, by the way. 34-yard long and 7 targets. So 5 catches on 7 targets. George Pickens is really starting to kind of find his own niche within the offense. And Russell Wilson and George Pickens are starting to kind of find a rhythm. The one thing I want to see change a little bit, if we can change anything, is to not have these lulls where Pickens isn't targeted and or a part of the offense. He's becoming that type of receiver. And if George Pickens is that type of receiver, you find ways to get him acclimated and involved throughout the entire game. When you think about some of the league's best receivers, you don't have these huge long lulls that sometimes feel like they take over a quarter, where you find yourself asking, where the hell is George Pickens? But that's sometimes what happens to the Steelers. They need to rectify that. George Pickens is a unique beast. We'll put it that way. That touchdown catch, the way he handles himself, is just different. It's just different. He's a unique beast. Love to have him on the black and gold. He's a winner for sure. Let's go to the next one. Another receiver, Mike Williams. Welcome to the Steelers, Mike Williams. Why? Well, let's look at the stat line. He had 1 catch, 1 target, 32 yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, is there a better welcome to your new team moment than that? The guy barely plays. They had a handful of plays that he felt comfortable with, that he knew his assignment. And essentially, when Calvin Austin III got pulled off the field, Mike Williams had to go out there. I'm assuming that Russell Wilson told him what the route was, and he ran it. Perfect pass. Not an easy catch. Great catch. Touchdown. And Dave and I said this in the postgame show. If that's the only play that Mike Williams will ever have in a black and gold uniform, and I'm not saying that I'm projecting this to happen, but if that's it, what a play to have be that singular play. 1 catch, 32 yards, 1 touchdown, the game-winning touchdown. Mike Williams is a winner. Let's go to the next winner, Russell Wilson. A lot of people might not have had Russ on their winners list. I did. 14 of 28, 195 yards, 7-yard average, 3 touchdowns. He did throw an interception, which was kind of like a punt. And he was sacked 3 times for 23 yards, a 93.6 rating. Why did I put Russell Wilson on the winners list? He was inaccurate at times. You watch the game. I know I watched the game. There were some passes that you could definitely tell there's a disconnect, whether the receivers weren't looking over the correct shoulder. Sometimes the receivers weren't expecting the ball to be thrown their way. Whatever the rhyme or reason, it doesn't matter. There were some inaccuracies from the receiving perspective and the quarterback perspective. But the one thing that was the issue the last time Russell Wilson was under center against the New York Giants was the red zone. They went 0 for 4. What did they do this game? 3 for 4. He threw 3 touchdowns. The last time a Steelers quarterback threw 3 touchdowns in a game was in 2021 when Ben Roethlisberger did it. That's been over 1,000 days. Think about that. This is what we have. I saw another statistic, and I wish I had it in front of me, and I don't. But it was all about how Russell Wilson's only like 5 touchdown passes away from setting a Steelers mark since Ben Roethlisberger retired for touchdown passes in a season, and he's only played in 3 games. It's incredible. I'm going to look up that stat. Check it out on SteelCurtainNetwork.com. Let's go to the next winner. Another new guy, Preston Smith. Preston Smith has 3 tackles, 3 solo, 1 sack, 2 tackles for losses, and a quarterback hit. Boy, was this trade beneficial for the Steelers. If you think back, okay, let's say they don't trade the 7th round pick. Preston Smith doesn't come from Green Bay to Pittsburgh, and it's just status quo. When Alex Highsmith went down with an injury, what you would have is a Jeremiah Moon and TJ Watt show. That's it. Nick Herbig was not active. He was ruled out with his hamstring injury. So he's not ready yet. So having Preston Smith there and not having to turn to just Jeremiah Moon was unbelievable. He goes out there. The dude's not going to get a bye week. I felt horrible for him when I heard that interview, by the way, when he said he looked at the bye week and saw that the Steelers just had theirs and the Packers were having theirs this week. He goes, I guess I'm not getting a bye week this year. That sucks. But huge game, huge plays made. Good for him. Let's go to the next winner. Is a simple one. Red zone offense. The Steelers, like I said, 3 for 4. The only time they failed when they got to the red area was Jalen Warren's fumble. And that was the only blemish. So that was a huge boost for this Steelers team. They scored 28 points. And for the first time, and I can't remember how long, Chris Boswell doesn't kick a field goal. That's insane. Good for the red zone offense. All right, let's go to the third down defense. That's the next winner. Why? The Washington offense finished 5 for 14 on third downs. 5 for 14. Now, also, just a little caveat, this is not part of the winners list. Coming into this game, the Washington Commanders had never been stopped on 4th down yet, and yet they were. The 4th and 9, throw to Zach Ertz, really close, comes up short. Steelers turn it over on downs. First time. Interesting little tidbit there. Let's go to the next winner. We have 2 left. Time of possession. The Steelers in this game dominated the time of possession. 36 minutes and 11 seconds for the Steelers to 23 minutes and 49 seconds for the Commanders. I'll say that again. 36 minutes for the Pittsburgh Steelers to 23 minutes for the Washington Commanders. The Steelers did the thing. They dominated the time of possession. And when you're playing an offense that's as prolific as the Washington offense at times, keeping them on the sideline absolutely can be a huge impact in this game. And it's going to have to be an impact in games in the future as well. Let's go to our final winner. Clutch plays at clutch moments. When you think about this game, there's going to be a lot of talk about decisions and key turnovers and things like that. But what mattered the most were the Steelers made the plays when it mattered the most. Think about those conversions. Like Pat Freiermuth had a 3rd down conversion catch. He also had a touchdown reception. You had Jalen Warren converting on 4th down. You had the Mike Williams catch, a huge play. You also had on defense, you're talking about that Cam Hayward sack of Jaden Daniels. It moved him out of field goal range. You're talking about sniffing out that botched trick play by the Commanders, which pushed them well out of field goal range. You're talking about catching or tackling the catch. Zach Ertz so close. If they miss and don't, that's DeMonte KZ, and I believe it was Minkah Fitzpatrick converging on Zach Ertz. If they don't time that hit perfectly, he gets the first down, and Lord knows what happens. Clutch plays at clutch moments. That is what makes a contending team. You can talk about averages. You can talk about yardages. You can talk about all of it. The teams that contend for Super Bowls are the teams that are clutch in clutch moments. And the Steelers were just that in Week 10. Now, unfortunately, that's the good. Now we got to talk about the bad. We got to talk about the loser list. And there's 6 things on the loser list. Let's start off with Joey Porter Jr. And Joey Porter Jr., I don't know. I'm not saying that he's having a step backwards. I'm not saying that it's a sophomore slump. It was a bad game. It was just a bad game. And there were miscues. There were penalties. It was rough. It was a rough one for Joey Porter Jr. And he's going to have to learn how to not be so handsy. And when I say handsy, I'm talking about just getting his hands on the offensive players after 5 yards. He had a face mask call. He had a defensive pass interference flag. He had a couple blown coverages. I mean, Terry McLaurin had him turning inside and out. And so what you saw was that Joey Porter Jr. was not traveling with the best receiver. Joey Porter Jr. was traveling with a receiver that was going to the single side. And so they're essentially saying, we're going to give Joey Porter the job of like Noah Brown. And then Terry McLaurin is on this side. We're going to shade to that side. You want to have your number one follow their number one. That's just not the case right now. Joey Porter, hey, just one game. Just like the run defense against the Giants. It's just one game. Let's hope it was just a blip on the radar. But he's on the loser list this week. The next loser is Broderick Jones. Broderick Jones is clearly the weak link on the line of scrimmage. And the one thing about his game is that it's not always bad. He just has these moments where the bad is just glaring. And so you look at Dan Moore, okay? Let's talk about Dan Moore as when we talk about Broderick Jones. Dan Moore Jr. is quietly having one heck of a season at left tackle. And Broderick Jones, maybe he's not meant to be right tackle, and maybe he's banged up, whatever. He's just constantly having these blips, these brain farts where you're like, what is this guy doing? He's given up the inside. He and the Mason McCormick maybe aren't communicating well. I don't know. He's got to get this stuff figured out, because if not, the Steelers are going to have a serious conversation about trying to re-sign Dan Moore and hoping that Troy Fautanu, it comes back and is that right tackle. Let's not jump the gun, though. But Broderick Jones, not a good game. He's on the loser list. Next, turnovers. The turnovers are crucial. They do not finish on the plus side. They finished -1 because they had an interception and a fumble, and they only got one takeaway, which was the botched punt. And they also turned it over on downs. You know, we talked about the fake punt, whatever. It's turnover on downs. The Steelers aren't going to win a lot of games this way. And when you have a team like the Commanders, and they have a good offense, and they move the ball well, and they put up a lot of points, you can't give them extra possessions. You know, if you talk about like the teams left on the schedule, okay, so like the Jameis Winston-led Browns, maybe they don't, if you turned it over once or twice, it's probably not going to equate to a guaranteed loss, but you just can't do it. You just can't give them free possessions. They got to get back on track. Steelers, Russell Wilson's first interception with the team, not good. Not good. Next loser is James Pierre. You talk about the drop fake punt. He had coverage issues. Did make up for it a little bit with special teams play. He was down there with Ben Skoranek on the botched Zacchaeus punt return. But also, he also had a good fourth quarter pass breakup, although I think a lot of people said that was a bad throw by Jaden Daniels. If it was a better throw, it might have been a different story. But neither. I just think James Pierre was thrust into a position he wasn't ready for. He's not a receiver. You hope that a guy could make an athletic play like catching a fake punt pass. He's not an outside corner. I think if the Steelers are without Dante Jackson for any stretch of time, they're probably going to go with Cam Sutton on the outside more than they would James Pierre. I don't know. But James Pierre, got to be better, man. Got to be better. 2 more. Next are the injuries. They keep piling up. I mentioned this at the very top of the podcast. You're talking about players that did not come back. Alex Highsmith with an ankle, Dante Jackson with a hamstring. You also had Calvin Austin needing to be checked out, Patrick Queen not looking right at the end of the game, Broderick Jones leaving the game for a play, Najee Harris leaving the game for a series or a drive. They're banged up, coming off the bye, got to get ready. Hopefully these are all minor. Hopefully they're back sooner than later, but the injuries are a loser. And the last one, I have the last loser is the fake punt execution. It's not about the fact that it was a bad call. It's not about that they were in their own 15, their own 15, which I understand. Like that's the crux of the argument against it. It was the fact that the execution, it didn't work. That's the stat line. And so everyone wants to say, oh, you want to bemoan like this, that, and the other. You want to call out Mike Tomlin because it did. Yeah, it was a decision that didn't work. It's the same as if it's a 4th and 2 or a 4th and 1, and the Steelers run the ball and it gets stopped. And no one is screaming, well, if the guard and tackle block better, that's a first down. No, they're saying it didn't work. The execution wasn't there. Therefore, that play is on the loser list. And I said this at the top of the show, and I'll just reiterate. And if you watch the game live and you're feeling the vibes like I was through the television screen, the entire game changed when that happened. The entire game flipped. Not in the right way. And so with that, it's about the execution, right? It's about executing the play. You go back to if it was a 4th and 3 and they decide to throw it short of the sticks and they get tackled, it's not if he would have actually broken a tackle and got a first down. No, they didn't execute the play. So that play is on the loser list because they didn't execute the play. But thankfully, we can look back and say, at least the Steelers won. And going back and fixing some of these issues is a lot easier when you win compared to when you lose. And I always think, too, that as a little aside, that coming off the bye, although they're rested, a lot of times it's tough for these players to get back into the groove. And they get into this, play a game, meetings, day off, get ready for next game. Go through that prep, play a game, meetings, day off, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That when they have a week off, sometimes there's no weekend and there's no regimen. Maybe it takes them a little time to kind of get back into the groove. They're going to need to get back into that groove real quick because this week, oh my gosh, it's Ravens week. Make sure you're ready for that. And don't forget to get your name in the hat for the free giveaway. We're giving away a free t-shirt every time the Steelers win. Check out the Steel Curtain Network on Twitter at Steel C Network. I'll retweet it from my Twitter handle at jhartman, HERTMAN_PIT, which, by the way, Tuesday, don't forget the mailbag tweets. I will put out the tweet. You respond. I'll answer it live on the show on Wednesday. But that does it for me. It is a victory Monday, everyone. Enjoy it. 7-2, first place in the AFC North. Enjoy it. Be happy. We'll see you on Wednesday. Go Steelers.